meetings, which allows for the public to participate in the meeting as an attendee. Attendees must register to participate. The registration link is unique to the meeting. The registration link can be found in the description of the Nantucket Government TV YouTube live feed for the meeting. People registering to be an attendee must use their names, otherwise they will not be allowed to participate in the discussion. Attendees will join in listening mode. They can click raise the hand button if they wish to speak. The chair will call on the raised hands in the order in which they were raised. If you do not have an audio capable device, you can use the Q&A function. Or we don't have that enabled, do I? You can call in as well. YouTube chat is not enabled. Any questions that cannot be verbally asked could be emailed in. All questions should be directed through the chair. As a preliminary matter, I will confirm that members are present and can hear me. I'll start with the board members. Matt Fee?
Aye, I'm here.
Jason Bridges?
Here.
Christy Ferrantella?
Here.
Thank you. And I'll make sure that town staff are present and can hear me. Libby Gibson?
In attendance.
Brian Turbot?
Present.
Amy Baxter?
Here.
Ken Bogrand?
Present.
Holly Backus?
Present.
Nancy Holmes?
Present.
Erica Mooney?
In attendance.
Roberto Santamaria?
Present.
Rick Sears?
Here.
Janet Schulte?
Here.
We have Beth Hallett from the school superintendent.
Present.
Gary Shaw, CEO of the hospital.
Present.
Sue Mittenden is here for the proclamation. Hi, Sue.
Hi.
Art Gasparo
Here.
is with us again. Okay, so this open meeting of the select board is being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow on with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless it is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment as previously noted through the Zoom webinar function. For this meeting, the select board is convening by video conference. The agenda materials are posted on the town website and how to join. Please be aware that folks can, if you share your screen, it can be captured by the recording. All meeting materials are on the website for the public to follow along. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will go through people's hands that are raised for comment. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Please wait for the chair to yield the floor to you. Each vote will be taken via roll call. So now I don't believe that there are any changes to the agenda, so we'll accept that. And I will go to announcements. I'll turn it over to the town manager.
Thank you. Just a couple of announcements tonight. As I think you already said, this meeting is being video and audio recorded. The Nantucket Alliance for Substance Abuse Prevention has a proclamation for Nantucket Red Ribbon Week, which is October 23rd through 30th. And I think Sue is going to, where'd she go? Read the proclamation. And we all, thank you very much, have our red ribbons.
Oh, thank you. So the proclamation, Red Ribbon Week Proclamation 2020, be happy, be brave, be drug-free is the theme this year. Whereas alcohol, tobacco, and drug misuse in the United States prevents millions of people from reaching their full potential in school, in the workplace, and in their communities. And whereas the 2020 annual observance of Red Ribbon Week provides Nantucketers the opportunity to demonstrate their commitment to healthy lifestyles and celebrate the safe, healthy choices that most young people and adults make every day on Nantucket by wearing and displaying red ribbons and sharing information. And so now, therefore, be it resolved that the Nantucket Select Board do hereby proclaim October 23rd to 30th, 2020 as Nantucket Red Ribbon Week and encourage all citizens, businesses, and private agencies, media, religious, and educational institutions to support and promote activities that raise awareness and encourage prevention of underage substance use and adult substance misuse. As well, we call on all Nantucket residents and businesses to wear or display a red ribbon throughout the week in recognition of their commitment to a healthy lifestyle free of substance misuse for residents of all ages in our Nantucket community.
Thank you
Thank
very much, Sue. I'm sorry.
Sure, thank you.
Sometimes the board makes a vote. Do you guys want to just vote that the week be Red Ribbon Week for Nantucket?
Yes, absolutely. Would someone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor by roll call: Matt Fee,
Aye.
Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
and there's Melissa Murphy, just in time.
Aye.
Don
Thank you.
Holgate, aye. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here, Sue.
Thanks to all of you.
One more.
The next announcement is about the 2021 annual town meeting. The warrant is currently open for citizen article submittals through 4 p.m. on November 13th. And if people have questions about this, please check the town website. We've just put some fairly new information up and we're really trying hard to keep that page up to date. That's it.
Thank you. Next, we will turn to our weekly COVID-19 update. Are there any public comments to begin with? I don't see any hands. I will turn it over to Roberto Santamaria, our Public Health Director.
Hello, thank you. So I'll do a quick sharing as always in just a moment. Okay. So real quick, with the testing, we were at around, as of yesterday evening, we were at 10,783 tests. You'll see that I'm not going to be putting the CastNet numbers up anymore for as long as we have the STS program from the state. I'll let Gary connect a little bit more on the stop the spread after this. We're in decent shape over the last 10 days. We've only had 7 cases. Over the last 20, we had only 23, but we're still in that 30-day period from that previous spike. So you'll still see that 58 cases there in the last 30 days. We are seeing some symptomatic cases, but not all of them are. So it's really important that we maintain vigilance and that those who are tested positive with asymptomatic testing, that they abide by the quarantine orders and the isolation orders. So our metrics are still green across the board right now, which is really good. So you'll see that the positive testing rate was, we brought it up at 2.3 as of yesterday's testing, but that's just the day of test number. Of the 7-day average is still just 1.1%. So that's really good. We're back down from when we're at one point, we were at 7% just a few weeks ago. So that's really good. With the metrics, the updated metrics today, so the numbers keep skewing, as you notice, to the younger population. So now, before it was around 50% of everyone, was aged 40 and below or 50 and below. Now you're seeing that more than 50% are 39 and below. So the numbers are skewing a little bit younger, primarily in the 20s and 30s. Pretty even split in the binary gender side, 53% male. As far as the race breakdown goes, you'll see a few more here. We did have a couple other groups that weren't here before. So we did have an Asian non-Hispanic come back positive, and you'll see a few others coming out. But as far as Hispanic origin, we're still pretty even. 37% is the Hispanic origin. The point of origin, on the other hand, you'll see a few others show up. The UK was there, Jamaica's now been added, and South Carolina has been added as well. So we've had a few cases that were imported over the last few weeks. I wouldn't say the majority of these last 7 cases were from out of state, but almost the majority, just under half. And then our cumulative incidence number, as you'll see, this is like I was talking about, it's always trending upward. So the part that's most important is the cumulative incidence from the last 30 days. So you'll see still, starting to go nice little flat number. Still, you'll see it goes from around 110 to up to 163, which is what we have as of yesterday. So I wanted to add the second section to the metrics for the sewage, because if you look at this, if you compare this graph to the graph from last week, it would look like we are actually expecting a massive spike this week in comparison to last week's. This is a relic of the way they changed the method of data collection. So what I'm going to start showing from now on is this whole graph here, but also in comparison to their incidence estimate. So even though the graph looks like we're expecting a huge spike, the incidence estimate stayed the same, which is only about 1 to 5 new cases per day. But we're still in that number, so it's still important to pay attention there. And this PowerPoint is up on the town website already. I already got it up to Florencia and she posted it. So, and if you want to go and look at these numbers, if you want to go and read this section here, which kind of runs into what the estimates mean, you can always get it there. So as far as the curve goes, this is the last 30 days with the running average, with a 7-day running average. So the trend overall is negative, but you'll see here, and look, if you pay attention to the red bracket, you'll see that it's trended up. So it's just something really important to pay attention, that we had 3 days of zeros. That is just a relic of the small numbers. We're always talking about that. We had 3 zeros in a row, 3 days in a row, and then a 1, a 0, and a 2. So it looks like it's a much more dramatic increase than it actually is. So we just need to pay attention to where this curve is, and next week we'll have a more robust view of what this may mean. But it's not necessarily predicting a spike coming up. As far as the enforcement orders go, you'll remember that last week we had 9 citations issued. We did issue 2 more. We started getting very good compliance out of this. So we only had to issue 2 more citations. We are still on occasion seeing, a truck drive by with one person wearing a mask, the other one not wearing a mask. So we're still trying to track those down. We haven't been issuing tickets for those yet. That's more, we're still trying to focus on education for them to say that both of you need to be wearing a mask. That's, just because the person wearing the mask is protecting the other person. So the one who's doing the right thing is actually the one who's most vulnerable at this point in that situation. So we're just trying to get that information out there. And then really important, we just have to keep paying attention to order number 13. As of right now, we're still red, but up until maybe 6 o'clock today, we might drop down to the yellow. We do have a Board of Health meeting tomorrow where we'll be discussing order number 13, but I do not expect order number 13 to be rescinded at that point. And then one of the things that we want to do is we'll take a look at it again at the November Board of Health meeting, which is on the 19th. So we'll be reviewing the Board of Health orders, the emergency orders, every month to see where we stand. But as of right now, it's important to see what the state has been telling us about how we have to be out of the red for 3 weeks before we're allowed to move to step 2. So where does that stand? So keeping in the last five weeks as I've normally done. So starting on the September 16th map, the week after, the week after, one more, and then this is last week. So this is probably the most important one that we want to look at, because if you pay attention to just south of Boston in this area over here, a lot of those communities went from yellow to red. So even though we're trending down, it's important to understand that the state is trending up. So we need to keep an eye on the state. We're doing great. So we just got to keep going forward with that. This isn't necessarily a huge review. This isn't a huge problem right now, but we are still paying attention, because if we are still part of the state of Massachusetts, and if the state goes into lockdown, we go into lockdown. I don't expect Governor Baker to issue any exemptions for Nantucket. But otherwise, I think we're in good shape. The takeaway from this report is that we, as Nantucket, as the community, are in good shape. And if everything goes well, if things go the way I expected it to go, in the next 45 minutes, we should be moving from red to yellow. So I'll leave that to Gary to pick up the stop the spread slack for me.
All right, thank you, Roberto, and good to see everyone tonight. Well, the program's going along well. I will say that we started the Stop the Spread initiative with a soft opening, which was Thursday, October 15th. And on that day, we saw 32 people, which were a transition out of the CastNet program over to Stop the Spread. And since we've been moving along, just to share a few numbers, on Friday, the 16th, we saw 65. This is all Stop the Spread numbers. On Saturday, we saw 40. Sunday, we saw 13. On the 19th, we saw 66. On the 20th, we saw 74. Today, we maxed out with the number of 75 that the state authorizes, and we turned away 7 to come back tomorrow. And remember, these folks are not symptomatic. They're coming in because they want to be tested. They're not sick, or they can be tested right away at the open program for the CARES program. So today we've done 365 tests. We found nobody positive out of the Stop the Spread initiative, but to the data that Roberta was just showing you, we're doing testing because we want to find cases, and if we do this amount of testing aggressively, we will find more. So that the number, when we were early into this, we were talking about flatten the curve, and then we steamrolled it for a long time because we got zeros and some slight climb. But with this amount of testing, you want to find more. So you're just trying to thicken the base. You're trying to thicken the line so that you actually find the cases. How the math works with the state doesn't necessarily pay a dividend, with the data to the island and how it impacts schools and other things, but it does pay a dividend to the community to find these cases, be able to go out and address them through contact tracing, and then slow it down from going sideways, which is what we've been doing with Roberto and his team's help as well. So all in all, very good. This program does have a contract date that could take us out into June with the current agreement that we signed. But it is something that has to be revalidated for need in increments. And our first increment to revalidate is on November 7th, if I recall correctly. So we do plan to request that it continue, but of course it is a state decision. They look at the value based on, I guess, what color we are, red, yellow, green, and what our trend is. We would expect it would continue for a while, but under the current agreement, we could go as far as June and then have another discussion. So all good through my lens. Anything else you want to add, Roberto?
I think we're doing well. And I think, Gary, the partnership that NCH and the town has had has been phenomenal. I know of a couple of my colleagues in other communities are actually quite jealous of the partnership we have here. So it's really important, and Nantucket's really important to understand how lucky we are.
Lastly, I'll just leave you with this thought. We do have lots of influenza vaccine. It is time now, as we've been doing for some weeks, to give flu out and get the vaccine, make it available. So please come and get a flu shot. I know some folks are saying, well, the vaccine It doesn't last that long, and so I'd like to get it later in the season versus earlier. I guess you could debate that based on the manufacturer producing it, but always best not to have the flu if it's circulating, and there are cases in the country circulating. So we would think that you wouldn't want COVID and the flu at the same time. So please come in. We've got it set up for your convenience. I think folks are enjoying it, and it's a real fast opportunity to drive through and get that vaccine. So come on in. Any questions for me?
You. Melissa?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I think it may be a question, Gary, for you and or Roberto, but could you just update us on how contact tracing efforts are going when you do identify cases? I think it's always important for us to just hear, at least anecdotally, how those systems are working or if there are any challenges anywhere. Thank you.
Sure, I'm off mute ahead of you, Roberto, so I'll jump in, but feel free to correct anything that I might say that is needing some update. So contact tracing is always about, will the person answer the phone? And we find that a good majority of people do. And then it's, are you willing to hear the information? Because you came in, you were tested, and you're waiting for a result. You can look at that on the partner's website and see the result. We do find that folks see that and don't always want the phone call when it comes in. But it is a requirement that when positive, that we make that phone call follow up and then start to do the tracing. Now, we're using the collaborative in many cases. We are also using our own resource that we share between the hospital and the public health department, who's based at the hospital. And I will say that the majority of all of the tracing that occurs, folks are cooperative, they're worried, they want more information, and it's a good opportunity to provide information and help somebody navigate what might be challenging in a household, either by themselves or if there's multiple people there. What is discouraging for us is that on more occasions than I would like to say occur, we will follow up people that are positive on an episodic basis, usually every day, to see how they're doing. And we will hear noises in the background and they're out playing golf or they're shopping or they're not at home where they should be. And that to me is really disheartening to put the community at risk and not take accountability for public safety. I'm surprised that there are those attitudes, but they do exist. We don't have an enforcement policy nationally to address that, and I think that that is over time something that will start to emerge as a thought. But now, we just try to reinforce again the message and ask folks to go back home and stay there for the duration. And if they need help, we have phone numbers and we can address things to help people. But overall, a very, very good focus. I think that the collaborative has been working fantastically for us. The data sharing is great. I think Roberto could tell you that as we get information, we contact trace back, you actually can see and build a puzzle of where cases came from. And that's very helpful for the state and for the island. So I think that's a summary. What would you add, Roberto?
Yeah, you nailed it. I think one of the things that's really interesting to see is that map on how it's built out. It looks like a really cool logic model. But that's it.
Christy?
Thank you. I've had two questions from constituents this week. The first one, when we're determining, the state's determining the metric, are we using what we classify as positives, where sometimes we're counting visitors and the state doesn't count that? I'm just wondering which metric they use when doing that. And my second question is, with the Board of Health order number 13, what are the metrics that will make the decision for when to kind of ease up on these guidelines, or what will you guys be looking for at the November 19th meeting?
So as far as the Board of Health order number 13, I want to see our community at green at least, and we have to stay green for at least 2 weeks. We can fluctuate between those numbers really easily. And like Gary was mentioning about how sometimes people who are supposed to be isolated are out playing golf with buddies. Until those behaviors stop, we're not going to get out of yellow. And if So I want to see us in green for at least 2 weeks before I recommend to the Board of Health to rescind even parts of the order number 13. As far as what order number 13, what sections of order number 13 will rescind, it'll probably just be the gatherings orders and things like that. I expect the mask order to stay because it's a no-brainer. The masks work. The other question about the metrics goes, the state only uses laboratory confirmed positives that are residing within your community. So, for example, one of the South Carolina people that we counted in our numbers, the state's not going to count in their number because they've already left. They were here only for a few days, started showing symptoms, found positive, and then they left back. They left by the time the positive came back. So it became a little bit of an issue for us because we counted positive in order for us to contact trace, but it's not in what we call MAVEN, the state Massachusetts Virtual Epidemiologic Network. They only use those confirmed positive cases that are so assigned to our town. So their numbers are a little bit lower than ours.
Go ahead, Christy.
Thank you. So when we're talking about the Board of Health order, you'll be looking at the state metric, the green metric, to determine that.
Yes, and it's actually our numbers are more conservative. So by using the state metrics, we would actually, that bar is a little bit lower, a little bit easier to cross, but it's the easiest metric to use. I don't want to reinvent the wheel.
Thank you.
Anybody else? And any members of the public are welcome to ask a question as well. Not seeing any. Thank you. Oh, Matt?
Yeah, Don, just a quick comment, and I'll sort of a question, sort of a comment. I don't think, we're still in this. I've been dealing with, a couple employees that, may have had contact or in quarantine. I have one that left the island and it was in contact and now she's in quarantine. So she left and, some young kid that she had dinner with who had just had a test, didn't say anything, went to dinner, and then she got a call from a friend of hers driving back to the island that she had better get a test and better quarantine. So this is, it's happening out there. The young people are not paying sort of the attention they should, and they really need to. And I think it's a gathering situation. The Restaurant Association sent some figures out to all of us today, National Restaurant Association. And this in Roberto, this is sort of my question, Roberto or Gary can confirm it or not. They were saying, if they said the residential, nationwide has been the issue, the residential gatherings, and they've said 10 people, if you have 10 people, there's a 25% risk that someone in the group has it. And if you have 25 people, there's a 30% risk that someone has it. And I thought that was an interesting way to look at it. You're having a gathering and you have 10 or 25 people, you have a 25 or 30% chance that there's someone there with it. Now, maybe that doesn't exactly apply to us, but if we have a gathering with a bunch of people from all over, it probably does. Or a gathering on island right now, it probably does. But I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you think those numbers are right?
Those sound like national aggregate numbers, so it probably is correct for a city like New York or Boston. For Nantucket, it would probably be less, but I haven't seen that study, so I'd be interested to look at it. But absolutely, gatherings are a problem, especially in the residential areas. The restaurants have been phenomenal at this. We only ever out of the 163 cases that we've had since the beginning, only about 4 were associated to restaurant lines and things like that. So it's been fantastic. The restaurants have been really great. Even when we had cases in Stop and Shop and Cumberland Farms, we didn't see any large scale spread from that. We saw the large scale spread from gatherings. the biggest spread that we saw, the parties in the summer, and the big beach party, and then the church gathering resulted in our 2 largest spikes. The only other time that we had a spike that was not associated with the gathering was workplace spread, and that was from actually gatherings, in a way, smaller gatherings, when you think about it, when you look at a communal housing as a type of gathering. So once people started paying attention that, oh, there is COVID in my house, and they set up schedules on when to use kitchens and how to disinfect bathrooms and how to disinfect the kitchens, we were able to stop that spread, which was the early September spread that we saw.
You know, Matt, I think it's important to realize that the COVID testing that we're doing is only as accurate as that moment, and until you see and are in close contact with another person. And we know that those gatherings have higher risk. And anytime we've wanted to quote a percentage, folks want to know, well, where's that reference data coming from? And so rather than quote a percentage, let's talk about what we know. We know that it's higher risk when you have people together in close quarters. We know that if folks don't mask, social distance, or wear their hands, there's a very high likelihood in today's environment that they're going to come down with COVID, or somebody in that group will. So if we just understand as human beings that step apart, put a mask on, and let's not have those gatherings of really any size right now while we're trying to mitigate this, we will have fewer infections, fewer deaths, fewer costs to economies. And we need to be diligent about it. And that's why it's disheartening to hear people that we know are positive aren't at home. And that puts so much risk to everybody. That's why this Stop the Spread testing program and the CASNet program has been so nice to have, that we have found cases through the CASNet program, which is voluntary. And I think we will through Stop the Spread. That's the intent, so that we can find it. We just need to be careful and distance ourselves.
We did, Rick Elmer had his hand up. I don't know if he's still there. The hand went down. So maybe the question was answered, but feel free to raise again if you want to, Rick.
Sorry, he actually sent a public comment email that I forwarded just now to the board. And he has his hand up again, if you want me to bring him in.
Oh yeah, go ahead and bring him in.
Oh wait, I think I just brought in the wrong person.
I'm not sure who that phone number is.
His question seems to be about outdoor dining though, and that is coming up.
Agenda item.
Oh yeah, Rick, do you want to hold your question for outdoor dining section? Okay, we'll just we'll do that. I'm going to go next to Beth Hallett, our superintendent of schools.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I am happy to be able to update you a little bit on our first 2.5 weeks of in-person learning in our schools. As you know, based on our community's red designation, we had to further delay our start to in-person learning from October 1st to October 5th. And then we invited our cohort A students to attend 4 days per week, starting on October 5th. Just to remind people which students are included in cohort A, these are students with disabilities and English learners, particularly those with more intensive needs. Students whose parents and caregivers report that they don't have good access to reliable internet or suitable learning space at home. And particularly students who are experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity, and students in foster care or congregate care. Students who are significantly behind academically, students who were disengaged and struggled significantly during previous remote learning periods, and early learners, grades pre-K to 5. And we also included children of staff members at the recommendation of the Department of Education. Our first week of in-person learning went very smoothly, with parents and students learning pickup routines, drop-off routines, health and safety protocols such as mask wearing, movement around the buildings, lunch in the classrooms as opposed to the cafeteria, cleaning desks, and a very different style of learning in the classroom. with the teacher at the front of the classroom and students all facing front. So the general consensus among both staff and students is that it's really wonderful to have children in the classrooms again. And the children seem genuinely happy to be in school with their peers. Even our littlest learners in pre-K are wearing their masks and keeping distances, and we're so proud of them. So it really has been a wonderful few weeks to just walk around our schools and see. And there is learning occurring both in the classroom and at home. While we sincerely had hoped to bring back all of our cohort B and C students this week, starting on Monday, we are still in the red designation, and that held us partially back again for a week. Based on the need to prioritize our in-person learning for students in grades pre-K to 5, we were able to invite cohorts B and C for those grades this week, but have had to push off cohorts B and C for grades 6 through 12 until next week. And if we know that our designation is yellow or as close as we can get to yellow, then we will be ready to welcome cohorts B and C in grades 6 through 12 on October 26th. While we're absolutely thrilled to have some of our students in person in our buildings, we know that it is just as important to consider those who are still learning remotely. And this has been probably one of our biggest challenges, how to teach both in person and remotely at the same time. Blended learning is a brand new concept for teachers and for administrators, and we really don't have any examples to go from. No manuals, no guidance, and we are literally learning how to do this day by day. This is such a significant shift from pedagogy as we once knew it, and everyone is learning how to adjust. So we continue to ask for patience and kindness. And we want teachers to know that you are doing an amazing job. It is a challenge that they have, but they are getting it, and things are moving forward. And again, having students in the building is such a breath of fresh air and wonderful. One other challenge that we are facing, I'd say, our safety protocols are going swimmingly. Everything is going very well, but we are challenged with transportation. We contract with Cape Cod Collaborative. We have 4 drivers operating buses on 1/3 capacity, where normally we would have 7 or 8 drivers, and we have, I think, 6 buses. Maybe actually we have 7 buses. And so we're still struggling to transport all of our eligible students without doing double runs, which would entail having pickups be very early in the morning. Cape Cod Collaborative has been trying really hard to find additional drivers, but it is quite difficult, and we have to consider the island factor because clearly we need to have folks who can reside on the island. So I might use this moment to just make a plea to the community, any and all of the residents who might have a school bus driver's license and be willing or interested in driving a bus. We are looking. So that's probably one challenge that we're continuing to try and be creative and think outside the box. But that's just a little snippet of what we have seen in the first 2.5 weeks, and I'm happy to answer any questions or give any extra information you'd like.
Thank you so much for the update on everything. Are there any questions from anyone? Anyone from the public is welcome to ask a question. Okay. Glad to hear everything's going well so far. Next up, we have an update from Amy Baxter, our licensing administrator.
Hello, thank you. I think as far as updates on, excuse me, current status is we're pretty much status quo as we were from last week. As Roberto mentioned, as far as the metrics and moving out of the red zone for 3 weeks, and then as he mentioned, 2 weeks in the green zone. We will stay in the status quo until then, and that determination by the Board of Health to come out of that will be when we can upgrade to possibly larger seatings as the rest of the state. So we stay in that status as of right now, and we're moving into renewal season for all our annual licenses, which we will continue to do, including all those probably a handful of licenses that did not operate this year, but that we did allow to do so, and we'll still be able to renew. So we will be doing that process starting up in the next week. I don't know if we want to move into the next outdoor dining, because that was going to be the other part of what I was going to speak about, and I can just give my little spiel on that. As I mentioned, I think last week, the status right now of outdoor dining and with our emergency order 13 is it was extended by the state, and we agreed to as well through the end of the pandemic plus 60 days. That is the legal standing of it right now. And obviously what that means is whenever this state of emergency is pulled, which obviously we're looking into next year sometime, we will still have an additional 60 days if we continue with outdoor dining in these expanded premises next year. And 60 days is generally the time frame that we need to do an alteration of premises on liquor licenses, so that if we were in that position in the middle of a season and wanted to make some permanent changes, we would have the time to do so. So we wouldn't have to pull anything quickly. So that is the status of it right now. We have extended that on private properties, and again said that we would allow for it on public property. Right now, I think the only two that remain are in front of Nautilus and in front of Gaslight, and some sidewalk seating still on Federal Street. And then we will take it up again in the spring. So as we get into this discussion as far as next year, what we're doing internally is discussing as far as our task force internally getting together to go over, all the great things that did happen this year, all the lessons we learned from that, and would like to move forward again based on direction from the board as far as how we move forward. There's a lot of things we need to learn from, things that we can do differently, and then understanding how it works post-pandemic, and the things we need to consider moving forward in that direction. And I will turn it over to you as far as how you want to handle the conversation moving forward. I know we had some public comment as well from restaurants wanting to know some direction, and what I would ask for the board is we're looking for direction on moving forward, and to not yet get too granular into details or down too many rabbit holes and ideas, but to move forward with how we like to see this in the future.
I know that the board has wanted to, oh, go ahead, Jason.
No, I
You're
just
definitely want to discuss this, so please jump in.
Yeah, I've asked for a couple of weeks for this to come on the agenda so we can exactly what Amy said, right, is give direction to the businesses as they start their planning. October seems way far away next summer, but business wise, you're already looking at your taxes, looking at your planning, your budgets for next year. And I think if we have a short discussion on, do we want to, if there's some type of COVID next year, do we want to have something similar, right? And Amy, I won't get too into the weeds. I don't think we're there yet. I'm curious what the board feels of about outdoor dining downtown. My take on it was a success. I think there were some concerns in the beginning that we'd be pulling, alcohol and partying and drinking out into the streets, and that didn't happen. And I think it actually went the other way. I think it became more family friendly downtown, which is kind of what we've all, in different ways, been interested in, going that direction. And then that was one thing I think came out of it, a silver lining. And I want to continue that. I think it's economically, it's good for downtown as well. I think traffic didn't change too much from the streets that we closed, and it was embraced by obviously the visitors, but also by the community. And I really, in 2020, I'm looking for any silver lining possible that we can find, any good things. And I think this is one of them. I think we never would have done this outside of COVID. Maybe not never, but most likely not. And I'd like to give direction to the businesses that we would like to go forward with this or not for next year. Thanks.
Christy?
Thank you. I agree with Jason that I really liked it this year. I think that it was something positive that came out of COVID. What I do think is what made it work so well was the fact that bars were shut down by the state and that we had an early closure. So I think as we're starting to look at 2021 and maybe there will be bars allowed and we're in this phase 4, just something that we're going to want to think about is how we structure outdoor dining so that it is outdoor dining and not outdoor partying. So that's just one of the concerns I think that didn't happen this year that we don't want to miss not thinking about for next year. But I'm all in favor of trying to set something up and figure out how we can support businesses and continue this for the future.
Melissa?
Thanks so much. I was looking to see if there was going to be any public comment before we all took our turn, but yeah, I will just tag on my messages of support. I think it was a wonderfully adaptive way to support our business community this summer. And I think it can certainly work again for next summer. I agree with Christy about, and I trust that Amy and town administration would have their eyes on just maintaining a sense of enjoyment for everybody downtown. I do know that there have been some concerns about trash and particularly maybe some safety concerns. So I agree with you, Amy. Tonight's conversation is not the night to get too granular, but I'm hopeful that we can work collaboratively to address what some of those concerns, as small as they might be, they're still nonetheless concerns. But I fully support doing this again in 2021.
Amy?
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. And I think what we are looking to do in a planning sense is to really do it in layers and to see kind of how we layer upon. We're still in the pandemic and you know, phase 3 different things, the things we have to consider with full traffic, with a full entertainment, with full bar situation, and different layers of that and how that looks in the future. I mean, it's definitely a great conversation. We learned so much and it was positive. I think I got to experiment with things I always wanted to do, and you know, we never would have been able to do otherwise. So it was good that way. And I certainly want to assure, we have gotten some comments from restaurants wanting some direction. Absolutely. And we will get back in our March and April mode where we were all talking and kind of planning. And now we have some background on that. So I think that's what we're looking to do internally, understand how we could do this better, what we need to consider, and then really understanding from the businesses what worked for them, and kind of then we can get into these granular discussions and some of these ideas. And again, with Janet and Culture and Tourism, which was a great help as well, and the Chamber of Commerce. So I think that's the plan, and it's something we want to do now, start doing now with folks for sure.
Yes, I would definitely. So I was just going to say a couple things. I would definitely support moving forward discussions now. I mean, I think that we need to plan for being in a very similar situation next summer, but then also talk about if we're luckily not in the same situation. I think that embracing this outdoor cafe type way of living was really exciting to people, and you're hearing that in communities across the country, and a way to incorporate it in a safe, appropriate way to go forward now that that people have had such a positive response to it. And I know that in the past, with like Christy's concern, we've done some outdoor allowances, and we were very specific about it being seated dining service. And I think we could put in those kind of restrictions and make it all function well. But I saw that Matt and Christy both had hands up. Let me go to Matt and then Christy.
Yeah, Don, you kind of said what I was going to say. I think that, you know, whether we're in it or not, I think we should work on it. And I think we should work on finding a way to do it in certain areas. I think that the conversation should be had, in the written plan should be to us for comment, you know, by year end. We should have those conversations. I think what the businesses need is certainty. And so, you know, that it isn't enough to say we'll do it and get to it in, you know, February, March. So I'm glad to hear that we're on board for it now. We have to be sure that it does not become Mardi Gras down there, which I think we all know. And I think, and I think the early close wasn't necessarily a bad thing for the island. There was a lot more, a lot of positives came from that. Now we can't do that if we're out of this, I don't believe, but maybe we can for the outdoor stuff so that it isn't interfering with everybody, but I think we learned a lot. I think it was very positive myself.
Thanks, Matt. Christy?
Do you need a motion by the board to show our support for moving forward with 2021 outdoor dining?
I don't think so. I think that we have a very clear consensus that we're all supportive of continuing to work on this, and there may be a motion needed later. But we did already extend the outdoor dining currently in terms of the liquor licenses. Jason?
I just want to ask Amy and Janet if there was anything that, or Melissa, if there's anything coming up. Are we doing a survey? Is the Economic Recovery Task Force going to do anything to gauge not only the restaurants but neighbors, anybody else on how to make it really great for 2021? I mean, we did this on the fly, really fast, and it was a success for the time we had. But just think about what we could do with all this planning. So, is there something already in the works?
Oh, sorry, Janet.
We've just finished a survey and have the results in. There'll be a press release going on about it. One of the things that we know about the future, it assessed what happened in the past, but there's still a lot of uncertainty. And I think Matt's point that if we can give the restaurants some certainty, it will really help with that planning. And it will also help the lodging association in a major part of our sector, which got hit really hard by in terms of what we learned from the survey about doing this. So I don't think we're planning to do another survey, but we might change our minds about that in the spring. One of the suggestions that I have from reviewing the results is that we need to be in touch with our sectors early and often moving forward, just like Christy did in the spring, and that we need to pick that up again. And Amy and Christy and Melissa, and it's our job to hear what the folks what they need from us, and that we want to do it. So I would say, yeah, we're eager to get going.
Thanks, Janet. Okay, I think Matt.
May I add something to that, Dawn?
Oh yeah, go ahead, Melissa.
Okay.
Then Matt.
Thank you. As the interim president of the Chamber of Commerce, I'll just add to what Janet just said that yes, we're going to be reaching out some direct communication from our membership office to our members and ask them what kind of support they feel like they are looking for right now, heading into the off season, particularly since Stroll is postponed for 2020. And then, what ideas they have for needs as we move into the spring. So we'll be doing some direct communication with them, not as a survey, but a little bit more informal. And I think Jen is absolutely right, just keeping those channels of communication open so that retailers, restaurateurs, lodging association members all know that we're all working collectively to understand how we can support them.
Thanks, Melissa. Matt?
Yeah, my comment, the other thing that we really need to focus on in this, there were a large segment of the population didn't go downtown this summer, didn't drive downtown, worked from home, didn't park downtown all day. If that changes, that will have a huge impact on this, on being able to do this successfully. So how we're going to handle, parking and enforcement and demand and all that stuff has to be part of this sort of analysis and part of the recommendation. I think, we have to remember people weren't going downtown. They weren't parking there long term. Restaurants were half staffed, so their people weren't doing it. A lot of the businesses that are down there were working from home. So that's going to be really important, or we'll do it. And if we don't have that figured out, it'll be a mess. So, we have to look at a couple things at once.
Agreed. Are there any comments from the public?
I think in the chat, Don, there's a couple of things from Rick Ulmer, but I'm not sure.
Okay. No, I think we're good. Okay, are we done with COVID for this evening? I think that wraps it up. This is the public comment portion of our agenda for anything non-COVID-19 related that's otherwise not on our agenda for discussion. This is the time where you can bring something to the board's attention. We won't necessarily respond to it tonight, but this is the time to raise any points that we should be aware of. Not seeing any hands. No new business, approval of payroll warrants and treasury warrants. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor by roll call, Matt Fee,
Aye.
Christy Carantella,
Aye.
Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Melissa Murphy,
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. Pending contracts, were there any questions or comments on the contracts? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move approval.
Is there a second? All those in favor by roll call, Matt Fee,
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Melissa Murphy,
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. Thank you. Citizen departmental requests and committee reports. Town clerk, request for approval of Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020 general election warrant. Yancy, good evening.
Hi, thank you, Dawn. Thank you, board members. So this is just the standard approval of the warrant and the signing of the warrant that announces the state election that's required per state election law. So it's pretty routine. That gets posted by constable about town. But as you have me here, I thought I'd just give a brief update to the board and any viewers that may be listening about early voting in person. Early voting in person has been going on for 5 days and will continue until Friday, October 30th. We've already had about 700, a little more, a little less, voters come in and vote in person in the 5 days that we've been doing it, which began last Saturday. So it's Monday through Friday. On the weekdays, Monday through Friday, it's 9 to 3. This weekend, which will be the last weekend, it's 2 to 4 and 6 to 8 p.m. at the town building through the Federal Street door. On Saturday, you can also register to vote in person. It's also the deadline to register to vote for the November 3rd election. And Sunday is 9 to 1. We have received back approximately 2,600 ballots already between the 700 or so folks that have voted in office and mailed ballots that we've received back. So a lot of people have voted. It's been a very challenging time for us to affect all of this. And so I'm very thankful to the assistant town clerk, Laura and Gail, and I'm thankful to the election workers that have helped us, and also the many, many people that have called and emailed and stopped by and said that they wanted to help. You know, as we all know, everything is a challenge due to social distancing and COVID and how many people we can have help, but we certainly have not had a lack of folks stepping forward, and I very much appreciate that. And I'd just like to end with a question, comment that a lot of folks have asked about, and I may have mentioned the last time I was on here. Many people have said, you know, can I come and vote in person if I requested a mailed ballot? And as long as you have not returned that ballot, yes, you may. And a lot of folks have already done so. They've come in and they've said, I would rather vote here in person, the early voting period, and done so. and you're welcome to do that. But if you have requested and received a mailed ballot, a lot of effort and expense, both from the state and the town, did go into mailing you that ballot. So if you're comfortable with that, I would ask that you consider casting that ballot and put it in the drop box at the 16 Broad entrance or mail it back to us. And a lot of folks have successfully done so, as I just mentioned. So that's about it from me, unless anybody has any questions. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions for Nancy? Thank you for being here tonight.
Can you just do a motion to approve that election warrant?
Yes.
So moved.
There's a second. All those in favor by roll call: Matt Fay,
Aye.
Jason Bridges, Melissa Murphy,
Aye.
Christy Carantella,
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Finance Department request for approval of general obligation bond refunding sale of $3,105,000 for the airport.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So recently, I had appeared before you asking for your support of pursuing a refunding for airport debt that was able to be called. And with your approval, we did pursue that option. We did get 3 bidders on the sale, which was last week. The low bidder, as noted in the AIS, was Fidelity Capital Markets with a net interest cost of 1.439%. It is actually 15 years. I apologize, I put remaining 10 in the first line. Over the remaining 15 years, as noted, this will save the airport $867,000 in budgetary interest cost savings. So it turned out very well. The original projections were a little over 700,000. So the timing of the sale worked out very advantageous to us in the airport. So we would ask for a favorable motion to approve the sale of the refunding bonds.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
And sorry, can you just, the motion be that you move to approve the vote that's in your select board packet dated October 21st, 2020?
Matt?
Yeah, I move to support what's in our packet, October 21st, 2020.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor by roll call: Matt Fay,
Aye.
Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Melissa Murphy,
Aye.
Christy Carantella,
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. Thank you. Next up is also airport. Finance Department request for approval to increase airport fuel revolver cap from currently authorized $2 million to $3.5 million.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. At 4 o'clock today, the FinCom did vote approval of this. In discussion with the airport, fuel sales have been better than they had anticipated. We had reduced the authorization at the June 25th meeting from the original 5.2 million to the limit of 2 million, based on the expectation and analysis that fuel sales may not reach the 5.2 level or was not going to reach that. To date, they've brought in revenue over $3.7 million. With the cap at 2 million, it would prevent them from paying or obtaining any more fuel. Under Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, with concurrence of both the FinCom and the Select Board, we are authorized to raise a previously authorized revolving fund limit. So as I did note, the FinCom did approve the request this afternoon to raise this to 3.5 million. So we would ask for a favorable vote from the Select Board as well.
Thank you. Is there a motion or any questions?
Motion to approve, given what's in our packet dated 10/21/20.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Matt Fay,
Aye.
Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Melissa Murphy,
Aye.
Christy Carantella,
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last up in this section, we have the Nantucket Historical Commission. We had a draft mission statement on August 12th that we had a meeting, and there have been some revisions, and Hillary Report, the chair, is here this evening. Hillary?
Hello, Madam Chair. Hello, everyone. Thanks for welcoming me back to your meeting. You have information about our new revised mission statement. We were grateful to have some feedback from town administration, have the opportunity to speak with your chair, and also Ken Bogrand, and also work with Holly Bacchus, our staff liaison, and made some revisions to the mission statement, which we hope really communicates to the board and the community why Nantucket has a historical commission, and also what the broader purpose of a historical commission is, what some of the activities are, what the historical commission is looking out for. We also tried to address, and I think successfully did address for now anyway, some of the feedback that we had on August 12th. You'll recall we had reached out to members of the Nantucket community who had a specific background in history, in archaeology, in preservation building, in house histories, in Nantucket history, and we had invited them to be kind of officially recognized by our group. And there was some feedback from the board here that might appear to be a board within a board and just could cause some confusion. So ultimately, what our commission decided to do, and this was a vote of the commissioners, is that we won't have official advisors at this point, but we do recognize that we have important expertise in the community that we want to be able to recognize and take advantage of and organize and offer to this board. In fact, we did that most recently on October 7th with help with the Coon Street name change and some research that we did with one of the recognized researchers, Betsy Tyler, who was working with us. So we think that that's important, and it was a request of the commissioners to figure out what the process would be so that we could organize this group and call them advisors or call them anything else that's appropriate in a way that is consistent with good governance and doesn't cause any confusion. So at this point, we don't have a board, we don't have a subcommittee, we don't have advisors, we just have people who know stuff, who can help, who are willing to work with us and volunteer. That was the second issue. The third issue we discussed was really the official, role of the commission, which I'd like to review a little bit. And finally, we talked about the certified local government program and the possibility of working with the historic district commission to make a joint application, and explained that this would be an application the HUC and the NHC would make together. It can only be made by both of us, and it can only be ratified, and we can only join this program if, once we're admitted, this board signs and accepts our application. So those were the four things we talked about. I'd love to read the mission statement and also talk a little bit about the official sanctioned roles of a historical commission, and then maybe have some discussion. Does that sound okay? Okay, all right. So the mission statement that we agreed is the Nantucket Historical Commission serves the public by protecting the National Historic Landmark of Nantucket. Nantucket's important historic resources include structures as well as their setting and context, the American and Native American artifacts, and the island's special visual quality as expressed in the natural and built environment. The NHC advises the Select Board on matters of preservation and works with Nantucket's preservation planner, planning director, and other municipal agencies. It creates plans and guidelines for historic preservation, directs surveys of buildings and lands of archaeological and historic significance, and advocates for historic preservation. The NHC complements the local Historic District Commission, which is Nantucket's regulatory architectural review board. It also liaises with the Massachusetts Historical Commission and local preservation and conservation nonprofits. Erica, could I ask that you share on the screen the page that's called Local Historical Commissions in Massachusetts, a summary sheet for new commission members? Thank you. So when we developed this mission statement, we did a couple things. One, we talked with the Massachusetts Historical Commission. There's a gentleman there whose name is Chris Skelly. Holly works with him a lot. He is the director of local government programs, and one of his jobs at the Massachusetts Historical Commission is to assist local historical commissions, of which we are one, with questions and clarification. So we sent him the pre-existing mission statement. We sent him our revised mission statement that we presented to you on the 12th. We sent him an alternative mission statement that that Holly and the commission had worked on together. And we took his feedback on board. That was step one. And then the second input was this very helpful sheet, which lays out quite clearly, as you can see, it's put together by the Massachusetts Historical Commission. It's a summary sheet for new commission members. And it talks about the key tasks of a historical commission. These are the tasks that we've been engaged in, and this is what you can expect us to continue to work on with various emphasis and priorities depending on the need of the community. The number one objective, which we talked to you about in August, is surveying, understanding, surveying, documenting the historic resources, their structures, their landscapes, their objects on Nantucket. And that would be under this first paragraph, which is inventory forms. So our surveys haven't been updated in 30 years and they're out of date. So that's a priority for us. And that's also why we want to be part of the certified local government program to access additional training and priority access to grants. We might determine if a property is eligible for listing in the National Register. In the case of Nantucket, our whole island is on the National Register. So we would, in this case, probably not apply to add a building to the National Register, but we would rather determine that it's eligible, individually eligible for the National Register, which would also indicate that it is an individually contributing or significant structure on our island. And that's useful information for our Historic District Commission to consider. We would apply for survey and planning grants. We could also apply for the Preservation Projects Fund grants, which could be used to restore historic structures that are owned by the town. I'm just looking at the next page. Erica, if you can just scroll to the page 2 of this document. If a project on Nantucket, since the whole island is a historic district, uses federal or state funds, it's subject to a review for its impact on the historic district. So it would be our job to review those projects to indicate to the Historical Commission and the Select Board as well if there's any expected impact. We are involved with public relations, so walking tours, plaque programs. We might do some of that, but we have very strong nonprofits on Nantucket that do that. Advising your municipal leaders. So this is very important. I'm going to read it. Historical commissions advise elected officials and other boards on historic preservation issues. Issues could include zoning changes, the reuse of municipally owned buildings, master planning, or preservation of historic landscapes. And, you know, I think it's very important to note that we advise all boards. So you don't have to listen to our advice, but it is our job to offer advice to all the boards in the town administration regarding all of these topics. We might get involved with demolition delay bylaws. That's typically what a historic commission would do. In this case, given that we're a historic district island-wide, we have the ability, through the HDC, has the ability to stop demolition. So we don't have a demolition delay bylaw. Preservation plans. The Historical Commission may find that a preservation plan is needed to better coordinate the many activities that will help preserve the community. This, I think, would be extremely important for Nantucket. Local bylaws and ordinances. A Historical Commission may seek to create or change local bylaws to better protect historic resources. Examples might be historic districts, demolition delay, scenic road bylaws, or village center zoning. And then the pamphlet gets into the similar names and different responsibilities. So it says, and I think this is the case, A historical commission is often confused with a local historic district commission and a historical society. It's important that you understand the difference between these three organizations. The local historical commission is the official agent of municipal government responsible for community-wide historic preservation planning, whereas historic district commissions are the review authority responsible for regulatory design review within designated local historic districts. And of course, Nantucket has its own special act which governs our local historic district, and is very important and isn't at all affected by the existence of historical commission. And a historical society, of course, would be like the NPT, Nantucket Preservation Trust, or the NHA.
I'm afraid we're getting a little bit beyond the scope of the mission statement that we were going to accept tonight.
I'm now finished. Thank you.
So this was all very good information, and it's in the packet, it's beyond what the actual mission statement does say, but that was read at the beginning. And I'm wondering if the board has any questions about the mission statement. The certified local government, we're waiting for an MOU to be agreed upon between the historical commissioning and the HDC, and then that would come back to us. But tonight, our actual agenda item is just to accept the mission statement as revised and voted upon at the 2 meetings ago historical commission. Matt?
I'll move to accept it.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor by roll call? Matt Fay?
Aye.
Jason Bridges?
Aye.
Melissa Murphy?
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella?
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. Thank you so much. So we'll look forward to continuing this process and the work of the Historical Commission.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Next up, we have real estate items. Request for appeal and execution of documents with Keep On Trucking LLC and 10 Industry LLC. We have A, B, C, and D. I'll let Ken Beaugrand go through this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a follow-up on the matter that was approved at town meeting earlier this year, and then the land exchange agreement was approved by the select board at September 9th. There's one small change that we need to make into that in order to be able to complete this, but the purpose of this project is to be able to have a new sewer pump station on Surfside Road, sort of a kitty corner across from the existing pump station. The existing pump station will stay, but this is a new one to accommodate the needs of the town. So there are 4 steps to this process that go on simultaneously. The first is to make a minor change to the land exchange agreement that you entered into on September 9th. And that minor change is to allow the transaction to be transfer be to Keep On Trucking LLC or its nominee, those 3 words, because by putting that in, it allows the Miles Reese to be able to designate the corporation that he wants the property to go into. The second part of the transaction is to accept the deed to parcel A, which is the land next to the bike path on Surfside Road, part of Miles Reese's property. The third is to accept the easement, the sewer and access easement off of Windy Way across Miles Reese's property in order to be able to access this property. The reason for this is so that we do not have to go create an access across the bike path, another access off of Surfside Road. So the access would be off of Windy Way. Again, well thought out by the engineers. And the last is to transfer 3 small parcels on Shadbush, which are but the major parcel that Miles Reese has over there. So basically, in a nutshell, those are the 4 steps that we need to take. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if there are none, there is a resolution that was drafted by town council, which is in your packet. That should be the basis of the vote today. As you can see on the map that Erica just put on, the yellow parcel is the parcel that the town is getting. The red across Windy Way is the access that the town is getting to the parcel. And both of those are permanent. And the 3 small yellow parcels are the three parcels that Miles gets, which attach to his big parcel number 1, which is the parcel that he obtained from the town many years ago. Be happy to answer any questions with respect to this.
Thank you, Ken. I did print out the motion since it wasn't in the packet earlier. So I don't know if you want me to read it into the record or if Erica wants to display it on the screen. Either way, I can. So the motion, and I'll look to someone to actually make this, is moved that we vote to approve and execute the following documents to effectuate the land exchange between Keep On Trucking LLC and the town of Nantucket. 1, amendment of land exchange agreement between Keep On Trucking LLC and the town of Nantucket. 2, acceptance of deed from Keep On Trucking LLC to Parcel A, Surfside Road, shown on a plan recorded with Nantucket County Registry of Deeds as plan number 2020-36. Acceptance of easement from Keep On Trucking LLC on 4 Windy Way and Parcel B, Surfside Road, for a 20-foot wide access easement over 4 Windy Way and a 10-foot wide construction easement over Parcel B, Surfside Road, as shown on a plan recorded with the Nantucket Registry of Deeds, plan number 2020-36. Number 4, settlement statement for Parcel A, Surfside Road. Number 5, deed from the town of Nantucket to 10 Industry LLC for 10 Shadbush Road, 14 Shadbush Road, and 16 Shadbush Road, shown on a plan recorded with the Nantucket County Registry of Deeds as plan number 2016-59. Number 6, settlement statement for 10 Shadbush Road, 14 Shadbush Road, and 16 Shadbush Road. And number 7, any other closing documents approved by town council necessary to effectuate the land exchange between the parties. Would someone like to make that motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor by roll call: Matt Fee,
Aye.
Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Melissa Murphy,
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. Thank you. Next, we do have one public hearing this evening. I will open the public hearing to consider designating a section of Center Street from India Street to Hussey Street as one-way northwest bound. I'm not sure who wants to introduce this.
Madam Chair, I can give it a bit of a try. In your packet, there's a bit of background on this. This came up months ago from a traffic safety committee recommendation, which the board agreed with, and we were on the verge of scheduling a public hearing. In fact, we may have actually scheduled one. Yes, we did.
We had to cancel it because it was when
COVID fell off the table at that time. And Arcus Barrow is here from Traffic Safety to review any questions the board might have. So you already did review this. I'm sure he could review it again. I think there are 2 comments that came in, one from Nat Lowell supporting it and one from Curtis Barnes not supporting it. Art, do you want to add anything?
Curtis raised some concern with traffic pattern coming from the sort of the north side of town.
Yeah.
Art, I don't know if you have any comments. I wasn't sure if you were here for this or here for the airport. I don't see.
Here for this. Let me text him and make sure he knows that he's up.
Okay. And this is a public hearing. If anyone from the public wishes to speak on this item, they can raise their hand and I'll recognize you. Did the board have any questions or comments?
Dawn, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so at least the map is up.
Okay, thanks, Erica. Jason?
I think, I'm for this move, but I think Curtis Barnes makes a good point on if you're coming down Center Street, like into town, and you don't know to take the left on Broad Street to get to Federal, and you go straight, then you're forced to go up Hussey Street if this happens, right? You can't go straight and turn on India. However, it actually happened to me twice this summer where I was coming down, India, and then I take a left onto Center Street, and then there's somebody right there, and nobody knows where to go. Someone had to pretty much drive on the sidewalk to get through, and it's the best version of 2 not perfect versions, I think. So I support it.
Thank you. I tend to agree with you.
Sorry, I have not gotten a response from him, and I don't see.
Okay. Well, I don't see any hands raised. I do sympathize with Curtis's concern, but I think there are some other issues that may outweigh that. Did any board members have other comments? Matt? Matt, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I got it. No, during our strategic planning, I brought up, hopefully we'll hire a traffic consultant, a traffic person who has modeling capability, because this is an ideal example of how we should be modeling this and know what the impacts will be and have a good idea. I think, I'll support it, but I think it makes, there are some concerns. This summer when I was going down, sort of I would drive through various times to check, sort of see what was going on. And I would go all the way down center, hit India, be able to make a big loop and head back home. You will not be able to do that anymore. And so it's going to be it will be very different. And we have to be careful that we are not, the trucks that are delivering downtown seem to be getting bigger and bigger. The UPS trucks, the FedEx trucks, they're all buying the biggest ones they can. We've got to be careful to not be designing and changing things downtown because they're buying the wrong trucks. I mean, that's my concern is, are we being forced to make changes because these guys are not, sort of delivering in something that's appropriate for that part of town, and so those are other issues that I know, that we need to sort of tackle. Do we want that size vehicle, that size truck? I was shocked. A new FedEx truck it couldn't even make the turn off of center to the step lane. And I'm thinking, why would they bring a truck that big to the island and expect to deliver downtown? It doesn't make any sense. So I just, I support this, but I think, we've got to be careful that we aren't, doing a lot of this to take when the solution is something different.
Hi, Art. Did you want to make
I
comments on
apologize. I had stepped away and you got to me before I could. Sorry
No
about that. The Traffic Safety Committee has, discussed this at length and certainly supports the proposal. Sorry, I missed the early discussion, so I don't want to be repetitive, but I am available if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing anyone from the public with their hand raised. So if there aren't any questions for Art, then I think I'll close the public hearing, and board members, you're welcome to make final comments or just go to a motion. Christy?
Thank you. Just to follow up on Matt's point, I am trying to jog my memory if our former transportation director, Mike Burns, did some sort of modeling with this. And so I think it was tracked kind of how many cars go through this and in what direction. And when he presented it to us in February or March, it was not going to have as much of a traffic impact as we thought. So I think there was some modeling that was done with this, but I just wanted to put that comment in just to acknowledge Matt's comments. But other than that, I'd make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Christy. All those in favor by roll call. Matt Fee?
Aye.
Jason Bridges?
Aye.
Melissa Murphy?
Aye.
Christy Carantella?
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. Thank you. Thanks for being here, Art. Appreciate
Sorry
it.
for missing that.
No, not at all. Next up, we have Town Manager's Report, Status Report of FY 2022 Capital.
Thank you. And right before we get into that, just back to Center Street for a second. So what we'll do is come up with a little bit of a plan. This isn't the first time we've done a street switch like this. So we'll probably pick a date that we can look out a bit so that we can have some initial, for a couple of weeks, markings that tell people that the direction has changed, and maybe get some outreach out, perhaps a notice in the paper on act.net, the town website, Daybreak, Nantucket, things like that. So we'll do some outreach, and if it's okay with the board, we'll just pick a date sometime, within the next probably month or so to get it implemented. Sound okay?
Thank you. Perfect, I think.
Thank you. And thank you, Art, for coming on and explaining. Art has been having to help out while we don't have a transportation planner, so we really appreciate that, Art. And he is a volunteer, so. Okay, the status report of fiscal 22 capital. During our initial planning for fiscal 22 capital, we agreed with the capital program committee and the board and the FinCom that we would do, for town admin would do these monthly reports so that we could keep the projects current and make sure everybody is on board with what is being put forward as we go, so that we don't get to the end and people don't know that particular projects were put forward. So Rick Sears, our assistant finance director, is going to take us through. Rick?
Great, thank you. So this is the second update on FY22 capital. And what I want to talk about tonight is what we've been doing since the last update and provide an update on additional capital project requests from the departments. Bring to your attention a few projects that are not in the FY22 plan at this point in time, but we want to get them on your radar screen. Preview the debt exclusion projects, and then finally just outline what we're going to be doing over the next coming weeks. This is a pretty high-level, quick update tonight. So if you could change the slide, please, Erica. So what have we been up to recently? Well, Capcom has been making really good progress on its departmental reviews, the interviews with the department heads, and is very nearly finished. The town manager's team has been doing its own review of the projects, and we still have a bit of work to do there. The capital request software has finally been readied for FinCom and Select Board access, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And we've been refining the departmental requests. I think when I was here last time, I said to you that the departmental requests we were pretty early in the process, and there would undoubtedly be changes. And in particular, the departments with the larger, more complex project portfolios would probably have some updates. And sure enough, we do. And I had specifically flagged DPW. So let's start with them, which is on the next page, Erica. So this is the same table that you saw last time, but with the addition of 7 new projects, all highlighted in green. These are additional projects. They're not new projects to you. Many of them were deferred at the 2020 ATM. We didn't bring them last time because we hadn't nailed down the cost estimates or spent sufficient time. And so in the weeks since the last update, we have. And so these are the 7 additional projects for DPW that I flagged may be coming. Many of them you'll have seen before. Annual site paving, that's now in for $250,000. The Jetties Beach facility upgrades, $803,000. The big ticket item there is the replacement of the awning, and so the metal structure as well as the material that drapes over it. You'll have seen each year requests for bathroom repairs, facility equipment replacement, and lighting repairs. And the big ticket, bathrooms is in for $820,000. That's largely the children's beach bathrooms. I think that project may still need some scope refining and cost estimate refining, but that's now back in the program. The equipment replacement is refrigeration at Surfside and Children's Concessions, and the lighting repairs are at the town building. Moving down to transportation, we've added 2 projects back in the sidewalk improvement plan. We were trying to bottom out just exactly how much the department director needed and wanted for 22. That's now in at a 3% increase over 21, so $1,069,000. And then over the last month, we've managed to get some better cost estimates for Waite Drive, so that's in at $3,027,000 now. No changes to Public Works. If you could forward the slide, please, Erica. Marine has 1 additional project, and it's not new in any way, shape, or form. It's the F Street bulkhead repair. This was approved at the 2016 ATM. The permitting has been far more extensive and lengthy than anybody expected. The permitting is now complete. However, with the passage of time comes the escalation of cost, and the supplemental funding request is for $438,000. Just going to stop here for a second. So a couple pages ago, I flagged that the capital request software is soon to be available to Select Board and Capcom. And this is a really good example of a project that you could go into the software, click on the project, and get some really good detail. You'll get in the project description, you'll get more detail about the permitting process. In the supplemental documents, you'll get photos of I'll call it the state of disrepair. You'll get plans and renderings for the proposed remediation. You'll get detailed cost explanation. So hopefully you'll find that tool pretty useful. Going back to the departments, police, nothing new. School department, nothing new. Erica, if you can forward the slide, please. Thank you. Nothing new for fire, IT, or town admin. So the slide is exactly as you saw it last time. Erica, thanks. Nothing new for the enterprise funds either. I will just flag, Matt, you had asked last time about the groundwater and soil investigation and how much was in for water main design and construction. And I said something over $3 million. I can confirm between 21 and 22, it's $3.6 million. So that's it for any updates to enterprise fund or general fund project requests. So changing gears just a little bit, there are a few projects that I said I wanted to mention or call out separately. So there's 3 projects here. There's been discussion, of course, around whether we can reconstruct the Tom Nevers playground in FY22. So we all know that the Parks and Rec plan has a lot of dependencies, a lot of moving parts, and it's in the discussions, it's been determined that we could probably reconstruct the Tom Nevers playground as a standalone project. And when we finally get around to phase 1 of Tom Nevers, when the playground would have been done, the playground will already be complete. It will be sort of ring fenced. It's not money spent that will then be wasted. The estimates, however, are quite preliminary. So the estimate of $1.7 to $2 million is based on the $1.4 million price tag for the Old South Road playground. This includes a bathroom renovation, the bathroom renovation for $300,000 to $400,000, and there is a contingency in there for subsurface debris of $250,000. So that's sort of how that project shakes out. And the second one, which is not really a project, but just want to flag to you that there may be a financial requirement for the financial assurance mechanism out at the solid waste facility. We don't know yet if there is going to be one, nor do we know the amount of the top up if there is a requirement, but we will know better in December and come back to you then. And then the third one is, and I think we're pretty early in the process here, but still wanted to flag it to you, is an FY23 possible project around Myacomet pond dredging. It's got a pretty big price tag of $5.5 million, and I'm just flagging it as there may be a town requirement to fund some of that. The next slide is a preview of the debt exclusion projects. So Newtown Road, $1.2 million. Lovers Lane, $3.3 million. Waite Drive, $3 million, which I mentioned a little bit earlier. The Children's Beach stormwater pump and outfall is $3.3 million. Nobody or Fieldhouse supplemental funding is $1 million. And Tom Nevers, which I just spoke to, is somewhere between 1.7 and $2 million. So that's $13 or $14 million when that's all toted up. And we don't yet know the impact on the tax rate, but of course, we'll bring that to you in due course. And then the final slide. What are we doing next? So Capcom meets tomorrow, and it will review police, marine, and transportation, and that will complete their department head interviews. Super important to know that that doesn't mean they're done with their process. They are over the next several weeks, they will be collating and prioritizing their products and their projects in anticipation of that mid-November joint meeting between the Select Board, FinCom, and Capcom. The town manager and her team will complete the review of the projects and begin the prioritization over the next few weeks. The finance director will continue to work on funding sources. And just as a note, the free cash certification is with the state now. And then from tomorrow, we'll be rolling out the capital request software to the select board and FinCom. Dawn, Matt, and Melissa, you'll all receive an email from me with login information, and I'm here to give you a quick 15-minute Zoom tutorial if you like. I think you'll find the software powerful and enriching, and probably be helpful if I could show you how to navigate around it. And that's it for tonight's update. If there's any questions, great. If not, thank you very much for your time.
Matt?
Just a quick comment. I can't let it pass. I grew up at the Jetties as a kid when I was 10, 12 years old. My mom ran the concession. The awning at that point was the responsibility of the tenant. We should be thinking about that because, and it was taken down every winter, taken down every storm. We should be thinking about that because I don't think it's very possible to have a permanent awning in that location with the weather we have. I think we'll see this as a continued expense. If we were saying, well, okay, we're going to improve our building and build it with wood and cover it and make it a real porch, that would be a different issue. But I think it's a sort of asking for trouble situation. I know we can't change it now. I made this comment previously. But all of these when we redo leases, we should be thinking about, do we want to be responsible for the refrigeration? These guys, if they don't take care of it, are we replacing it again? Some of that stuff, you take care of it, it lasts 30 years. So it's just a comment for future.
Are there any other board questions or comments? Oh, Jason.
Madam Chair,
You're down in the bottom corner.
I just wanted to thank Rick. It's for all the work he's doing on this. It's been really helpful for Capcom. This is my 4th year, and it's just really nice to have his expertise and financial knowledge and to have this position. And it's going to get even better and better. So thank you, Rick, and thank you to Brian and everybody that's helping Capcom analyze everything and figure out the programming. It's definitely gotten another level up. We've gotten better this year. So thank you.
Yes, thank you all very much for all your work on this. And I look forward to that tutorial. I'll set that up with you.
Great. I'll send you the email tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, next I got the monthly town management activities report. I won't go through every item here. I just sort of bolded the ones that were a little new or that we've been working on more than normal. So as we all know, the board had its annual retreat for the strategic plan last week, and we had a couple sessions. I think I just got something today from our facilitator, a report that staff will take a look at and work on what action plans could look like, and then we'll bring it back to you all and see if you're ready to adopt it. Meetings we got a lot of meetings, different meetings going on right around now. Board of Health has been, I've been attending Board of Health meetings as needed when local orders are being discussed in particular. Economic recovery items, I want to thank Greg Tivnan for his and Janet's work and everybody else who contributed to a grant that we received for outdoor heaters and other types of outdoor dining items for going into the fall and winter. So that was fantastic. Pond management, you guys had a great presentation last week from Bob Williams of the Nantucket Pond Coalition, and that's where we heard about that Myakama Pond dredging project that Rick just mentioned for fiscal 23. And he's working to get me some information on that to get that into the plan. Obviously, we're still working on the fall surge with renewed messaging, meetings, actions. Signage is something that we're working on. We got those signs around town that say something like keep us safe this summer. We're working right now to replace all of those with like a refreshed sign and put it in other places as well, like down at the High Line and at the steamship. So those were a little bit delayed in getting here. So I think they're here now. Coastal Resiliency Workshop we had in September with an MVP grant that we received. I think you all have already been briefed on that. We had that conference call several weeks ago with the state's COVID incident command team, and that ultimately helped result in the Stop the Spread testing program that we now have here. The sub-EOC is continuing to meet once a week. That's myself, the two chiefs, the emergency management coordinator, and Roberto, the health director. And right now we're meeting once a week because different things are coming up. We're trying to monitor still what the governor is saying. And the Department of Public Health has some very informative calls once or twice a week that I'm trying to get on whenever I can. And I know health department staff is as well. And sometimes Amy's able to get on there. We had our end of season beach meeting, and there are going to be there are some things that we're working on for next year, which are going to be coming to you all at some point. So preview. One of the things we're working on is being more consistent with the licensing of vendors at the beaches. More to come on that, but we're working on making restrictions, requirements, guidance, things like that more consistent. Solid waste long-term planning continues. At your meeting next week, the DPW has prepared a take it or leave it status report. This came up maybe in September, perhaps early on in September, with some citizen inquiries, and it's taken a little bit of time to get the report together, but I think you're going to find it very comprehensive, and that comes to you next week. We had that school public forum about the hybrid model on September 28th, and we heard from the superintendent tonight about that. A lot of different projects going on. This isn't everything, but it's some of the ones that have been most active lately. I think you're going to have a contract next week to set the modular trailer, thank God, at the old fire station. And that will be ultimately used for meeting space, but hopefully that thing will get placed very shortly. The island home, long-term planning. We had a presentation last week on this, and we're working on next steps right now. Beach access was an executive session discussion, which has now been continued to November 5th. Harbor Place scope of work is underway. We prepared a scope of work. We reviewed it internally. It's been sent to the owners of the Harbor Place site. They have made some comments and sent it back, and I'm in the process of reviewing it now. The planning is underway for the third sewer force main. Stop the Spread we talked about earlier. WPI, Worcester Polytech, is, as I think you all know, they've been doing projects here in the fall and winter, different projects for different organizations, and the town usually gives them one or two or more projects. And they are working on a Keep Nantucket, Nantucket project. And hopefully some of you have either been interviewed already about this or you are going to be. I'm trying to keep a bit of a list of things that we had to put on hold due to the COVID-19 pandemic response, and we're trying to get some of them back onto our radar and onto our desks. And one of those is revisions or updates to the real estate yard sale program. Last November-ish, maybe even into December, there was some discussion, I guess it might have been December, some discussion about the yard sale program and some things that might be lacking coastal resilience wise, things of that nature. So we're working on getting some recommendations together for the board. The real estate assessment committee has been working on that with our real estate specialist. Nantucket water quality improvements. We have a report on this, and I've been trying to figure out how to get it, when to get it before the board. So you're going to get it before the end of the year. We had an internal group that's going to take one last look at it before we just do a little outreach on it and get it before you all. Pool discharge regulations are in progress. The strategic plan update, we talked about municipal space needs, which is really the municipal facilities master plan. You all got an email from me, I think it was today or maybe it was yesterday, about scheduling a workshop. This might take more than one workshop. There are a lot of things to consider with the municipal facilities master plan, but we're working to get that in front of you. Paid parking at some point for next summer, or if that's where we're headed, is going to need some board direction. And there are a few other things on there that we're trying to get to that we haven't been able to totally get to them yet, but they are on the list to get in the queue. And That's what we're working on.
Any questions or comments? Lots of stuff going on. Okay, thanks for the update.
Thank you.
Next, we have a decision to make on the New Year's Eve fireworks. I don't know if Jan has any new information from the vendor?
No, I have not had any conversations with the vendor since probably July, and that was about 2021. So any conversations I would have them moving forward would need some direction from the board about what you want to do.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Does anybody have any thoughts on what we should do about fireworks on New Year's Eve?
Madam Chair, I know this is not a town admin decision, it's a board decision, but just FYI, at our sub-EOC meeting today, we did discuss this a little bit. And I personally keep flip-flopping back and forth between let's do it and let's not do it and maybe we should do it. And I think one of our I see the chief has his hand up, but he's probably going to say this. One of our concerns was the governor's advice has been very consistent. Do not initiate activities or events that could encourage people to congregate into groups and gatherings. And so we are concerned that could happen here. So that is something for you to think about.
Thank you. I'll also go to Chief Pittman.
Hi.
Hi. Good evening.
I had a conversation here with the harbor master. We got a few concerns that came up since this was originally discussed. And one of the big concerns we have is that there's going to be, we're talking about the advantage of having it on the harbor was people could go down to the waterfront and they could separate a little bit. Well, what we didn't know was one of the areas that many of the people would go to would be probably out on the boat basin on their docks. And what we didn't know was that was going to be all under construction this winter. And a vast majority of that dockage or those docks will be closed off. Plus, in order to save money this year, when we take the floating pier apart down on the town pier, parts of it we were going to store floating in the water attached to the standing pier in certain areas. And the harbor master has some concerns about people being down on the town pier with potentially freezing or frozen water. And those types of surfaces being there and people not realizing they may not be stable. So it'll be a burden on her staff to have to be down there to manage that and to manage on the water fireworks. So originally, I know public safety was okay with having it on the 4th on January, but that was before we knew about these other circumstantial changes.
Do you know when they're planning on starting the construction on the boat basin docks?
Yeah, but they're doing it right now.
They've already started.
Yeah.
Okay.
You've been down there, not the Easy Street. I can't remember. It's called South Wharf, I believe it's called. Is got a huge barge in there now, and they're replacing pilings, and then they're going to start replacing decking and a lot of other things. It's the project's going to go all the way to April.
Okay. I guess that if we're going to postpone fireworks again, I guess my question would be with our contract, can we have like double as good fireworks next July or something like that? Can we still utilize this sort of 3 sets of fireworks that we had contracted for? And I guess that would be the question for the vendor.
I defer to a procurement officer or Brian to say whether we can change the scope of services that's already in the contract for each of the 3 years.
Okay. Any thoughts, Brian?
I think we can't extend the contract, I can tell you that. So we have to stay within the 3 years. There's no ability to extend out.
You did say that before.
I think we could amend the scope to make some modifications to change what would be delivered in year 2 if the company was willing or interested or able to do that. I think that would be something we would be able to do. And I think that would be an option that we would have. We'd be limited in obviously in funding, but to what we have within the scope of the agreement. But I think we could potentially make a modification there.
I would point out that we have not budgeted for an additional expense for a giant fireworks display. 2
Well, the
years in
finance
one.
department will help you figure that out.
Thank you.
Well, I was just thinking that maybe we could have 2 better shows rather than 3. Christy?
I like where you're going with that. Could we do 2 shows next year? So one for 4th of July and one for New Year's Eve, and then still have our third in our 3rd year?
I'm happy to talk to the vendor about that if they would be willing to do that. I have a feeling that they would be very willing to do that.
I think that that's probably the kind of direction you're looking for, right, Janet?
Yeah.
Go back to them with these things. Melissa?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I agree with that heading, and I'm very concerned about the possibility of inciting a gathering as safe as we would like to think we would be on December 31st. I think we know now that we just can't plan for how this virus is going to go. So I would love to find a creative solution for 2021.
Jason?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said. I think if we can work with the vendor and see if they'll do the New Year's Eve following year, that would be great.
4th of July and New Year's Eve in 2021. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, 2 shows in 1 year, or two bigger shows over the next 2 years would, I think, maybe be the 2 potential.
And if Brian tells me we can afford that, then I'm happy to have either 2 shows in 1 year or 2 bigger shows on the 4th in each year.
I mean, and I'm heading with Melissa. I mean, with us being in the red and us not even being able to have all kids go back to school yet, I don't feel like it's responsible to schedule these fireworks for this year. Matt?
Yeah, I guess when we talk to them, I'm not sure. I hope that we're good by July next year or by, January next year. But I guess when you're talking to them, I would ask, sort of instead of saying, can we do X and Y, I would say, how flexible can you be? How flexible can you be if we're in this situation, or 40% less, this situation next summer, we're open, a little more, like, just sort of, I would sort of try to feel them out of how are they dealing with this with other communities? What's the best way to handle this?
They've been very flexible with us, and I think will continue to be so. They lost a lot of revenue this year because of so many cancellations up in all through New England.
Okay, so maybe we can try and get those answers and have a follow-up in a week or 2. Oh, we have to cancel this before November 1st, right?
No, actually by Thanksgiving, so we still have a little more time.
Okay.
But I'm happy to give them a call and explore these ideas about 2 big shows over 2 years, or 2 shows in 1 year, or, see how flexible they want to be and what we want to do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee reports. The CPC did wrap things up and have a warrant article ready for April. We're able to actually grant all of the funds requested this year and pay off some bonds with the extra revenue. So Ken was very instrumental in doing that while he's still on here. I think that we ended up in a really good place this year, and we'll be ready for hopefully more applications next year. Anybody else? Christy?
Just a small update. Affordable Housing Trust Fund met yesterday. I was able to listen in for part of it, but we did approve 2 closing cost assistance programs. And I just think it's really great to bring that news forward of this new program that's helping home ownership, which I know we talked a lot about last week in our strategic plan. So that was really great to approve those 2 families. And also the NPDC met this week as well with our monthly meeting. And we've been reviewing the area plans for the master plan and also looked at Harbor Place and started that discussion. One other side note, I was able to attend the WeMo Women's Conference last Friday for the MMA. And the 2 topics were how we're adapting to technology and diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how to lead through a lens, looking through that lens. And so as soon as they send out a recap, they're going to send a bunch of resources. I'll send that to the rest of the board. But one of the biggest things was learning how quickly we've adapted to things. So some select board member groups are still meeting by phone or not meeting at all. So the fact that we have the Zoom technology and partnering with NCTV, we're come a long way. A lot of towns have noticed that the younger population is actually having more difficulty with technology, and they're more likely to submit things pre-meeting. So submitting public comments by email. And I'm not sure if that's because they're not wanting to get on Zoom or family schedules are difficult, but they've also seen a large increase in people viewing their meetings. And so it's just interesting to see how other people are adapting along with us. And in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, a lot of other towns have hired All Aces, which is the firm that NEA hired to do work on Nantucket. So I think that we're moving in the right direction. And we've put out statements and strategic plans around diversity, equity, and inclusion, as other towns have done. And so it was reassuring to hear kind of that we're all moving in the right direction. Thanks.
Thank you. I was really happy on the Affordable Housing Trust thing. There were a couple of new covenant sales this week, which was really good to see. Anybody else? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call vote, Matt Fee,
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Melissa Murphy,
Aye.
Don Hogan, aye. And I'll see most of you tomorrow at 5. Okay, have a good night.
Thank you.